Hi there, this is Tom Lee. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of FundStrat Capital and the Portfolio Manager of FundStrat's U.S. Large Cap GRNY Shots ETF. This is our update for the week of July 17th. First, I just want to give you some particulars. As of July 16th, the price of GRNY Shots was $23.01, net asset value of $23, and total assets of $1.76 billion. Over the past week, GRNY Shots has gained 1.16% compared to the S&P up just 0.03%, or a relative outperformance of 113 basis points. And year-to-date, GRNY Shots is outperforming the S&P 500 by 797 basis points and gained 1,443 basis points of outperformance since April. I'm going to start with a little macro, and I think the theme for the week, there's a lot happening, but I think the real theme is markets were looking for signs of inflation because we know Fed Chair Powell was warning about inflation starting to come up in the June CPI reports. So this week there were three inflation-related reports that I want to comment on. The first is June Core CPI. Now that actually came in better than expected because it came in at 0.23 versus 0.26. Now, there's some folks who would say that inflation accelerated in June, and that's true to an extent because goods prices did actually rise. And something like window and floor coverings, you can see, have increased because of tariffs. But keep in mind, this is the fifth consecutive CPI report where the reported number came in below consensus expectations. So I think it's really a matter of perspective. The second number is Core PPI, which came out on Wednesday, and that was a negative number versus the street expecting a positive number. Now, this is important because that's the leading edge of inflation. Producers are the ones that are going to be first experiencing higher tariff-related costs, and PPI was negative. So, and as you can see, that's a pretty impressive number, and there's easier comps coming up when you look at the year ago. So as we get through the rest of the next 4 months, the year over year could actually be declining. So not much inflation in the PPI. And then we had the Fed Beige book for July. And again, this is a Fed collecting comments from all the local businesses. And a pretty good summary came from Vital Knowledge, but they viewed it as a net positive. Economic activity picked up, and the data scientist team at FundStrat kind of compared this trends of the Beige book by region, and overall, more regions are reporting better activity, whether it's economic activity, economic outlook, lower prices, or better employment, and a few are worse, but on balance, it's positive. So I'd call that half full. So from an inflation perspective, I think it was a victory for those that think inflation isn't a problem. And this continues to be one of the most hated V-shaped rallies. And that's why I think the pullbacks remain shallow, something we've talked about. And maybe more importantly, the S&P 500 companies prove that they are relatively indestructible. They survived the COVID shutdown, the bullwhip supply chain effect, the inflation cycle of 2022, the fastest Fed hikes in history, the 2025 tariff global disruption, and of course, the US bombing Iran. And yet, despite all of this, the equal weight S&P PE is lower today than it was in June 2019. I think after surviving all these various black swans, I think the multiple should be increasing. Now, let's talk about stock performance of the individual components of the GRNY Shots. I think the theme here was really AI is driving a lot of the improvements in the performance. So let's look at the top performers of GRNY this week. Out of the 7, 4 of the top 7 were AI-related names: AMD, Tesla, Palantir, and Nvidia. And I think it was aided by the fact that the US is lifting the ban on chip sales. But additionally, 2 names topping the list, MicroStrategy and Robinhood, are actually Bitcoin related. And Bitcoin broke to an all-time high this week. That's positive, of course, for MicroStrategy and for Robinhood, which is getting into crypto. And the bottom five performers, leading among the worst is names like FICO, which we know has been a chronic problem because of what's happening in Washington. Here's the best performing theme for the week. It's millennials, led by MicroStrategy, Robinhood, and Tesla. The second best is global labor suppliers, which is AI related. And the third is the PMI recoveries. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.